Hi everyone, welcome to TriEssence martial art channel. And today we are fortunate to have Naira to join our channel for a brand new series of videos where we are going to test out various female self-defense techniques that you find on the internet and see how effective or ineffective they are and what are the possible better solutions to those kind of problems. And this video will serve as an overview to the entire new series. We're going to talk about one very important concept that you have to understand before watching the rest of the series, which is a very simple fact of why is self-defense a lie. Right? So you heard it right. Self-defense in itself is a big fat lie. And today we're here to tell you exactly why that is the case. So the first thing that you have to realize is that self-defense, to a lot of these people who teach self-defense on the internet and in real life, has been marketed as a magical solution, almost like a miracle cure to a terminal disease. You know, it's almost like people who want to tell you that there's a special miracle cure for cancer or any other untreatable disease. And in doing so, they are basically preying on the desperate, right? When people are sick with diseases that they cannot be fixed or cured by modern medical science, and then these charlatans will come to them and sell them a miracle cure, and in return scam a lot of money from them. It's a very bad behavior in my opinion. I totally despise people who does that. And that's exactly the same type of scam that self-defense instructors are running, because even though admittedly, self-defense is not as serious as getting cancer or any other incurable disease. However, people who are in urgent need of self-defense is also like desperate people who will become victims to this kind of scams. Someone might feel their life is threatened, they are unsafe, and here comes a charlatan selling them a miracle cure. If you take my classes, then you'll have no problem, you can defend yourself and you'll be safe. So that's the kind of scam a lot of people are running. So the first thing you have to remember, there are no miracle cure in Western medicine, just like there are no magical solution in self-defense. It's impossible to teach you something and then all of a sudden you can defend against anything that will come your way. It's impossible, okay? The only miracle cure, so to speak, or magical solution that you can have in self-defense, especially for female who are inherently weaker than a male assailant, okay? Shorter, weaker, and have less reflex. The only real solution, what they call, whether it's a self-defense hack or a cheat sheet, like recently I've been seeing on YouTube where there are even marketing toward my channel stuff like, the 10 vital points to strike in Krav Maga. If you get this sheet, you can defend yourself on the street. It's completely, utterly nonsense. Just knowing you can poke the guy, I hit the guy's throat, these are things that even kid in primary school knows, but it doesn't mean you're able to do that against an assailant who is especially bigger and stronger than you, okay? So all this trash about cheat sheet, self-defense hack, shortcut, all nonsense. The only real shortcut anyone can ever hope for in a self-defense situation between two persons who are in a confrontation is basically if you hold out your hand and you have a knife. And in that case, yes, I'll have a severe disadvantage, okay? That's because a knife is a huge force multiplier. In this case, even though I'm bigger and stronger and male and she's female, but as long as that weapon touches me with any significant amount of force, I'm most likely going to get a puncture and going to bleed to death. So in that case, yes, she has an advantage, and this is a hack to self-defense. What's even better than that is if she has a gun. And yes, in this case too, right? If she has a gun and she has maintained a sufficient distance, don't hold a gun to my face, right? Keep it at a distance, then yes, this is also a huge problem for me, because in the time of pulling a trigger, which is a split of a second, I could be shot dead. So in these cases, yes, you do have a hack to self-defense. So if you really want to have an easy way in self-defense, get a knife, get a sword, get a gun. And ideally, you want to learn how to use a gun, shoot accurately, how to draw it out in stressful situations, learn how to handle a knife, how to handle a sword. Then yes, these are the shortcut and hacks. Anything other than getting a weapon in a self-defense situation is not a hack. Anyone who tries to sell you a hack or a cheat sheet to self-defense, they're lying. You should punch them in the face, swear at them, and then never talk to them again. Okay, that's how it should be. Now, of course, you have to remember that depending on which country you're in, having a knife or a gun against an unarmed assailant may or may not be legal. For example, in South Africa, if I'm an unarmed assailant and she has a gun, she's not allowed to shoot me. She can only shoot me if I'm shooting at her first. It's a pretty stupid law, but that's how it is in this country. So I'm not sure about how it is in your country, but before you take my advice on getting a weapon, do check with a lawyer in your country to see if it's actually legal to use a weapon to defend yourself against an unarmed assailant. If it's not, then unfortunately you can't cheat in self-defense. You have to put in the hard effort like everybody else. Which brings me to the second point. Now, what if you are willing to invest hardship, sweat, pain, time, and dedication in learning how to self-defense? In that case, would it then be okay to learn self-defense, whether from internet or from your local self-defense instructor? Well, the answer is still most likely not. And why is that, you might ask? Well, there are a couple of reasons. Firstly, we have to talk about the relevance. Okay, one of the big trends in self-defense is that they will teach you some kind of solution to a situation that's not even relevant. I'll give you a few examples. For example, a very common self-defense seminar will teach what to do when somebody grabs my wrist. Okay, or what to do, in this case, you want to put her in a joint lock, or what to do when somebody grabs my shoulder. Okay, in this case, you have to, do a joint lock, or what to do when you grab with that arm, and then you have to do something like this, or well, you get the point, right? But the point is, in reality, assailant who are actually going to threaten your safety, the real assailant, right? They're not going to come here and grab your wrist, or come here and grab your shoulder. These are all very pointless solutions to a very pointless problem. And the reason that self-defense is trying to teach these nonsense is because these are simple problems that they can't present a solution, okay? Real-life confrontation, assailant, fight and conflict are much more chaotic and complicated. You can't have a very clean solution for real-life confrontation. And most of those self-defense instructors, they can't even defend their own life should they be attacked on the street by a real assailant. Which is why they can't teach you and market you a very well-packaged, simple, easy-to-execute solution to a real-life problem. Which is why they set up a straw man, right? They give you a false problem and then give you a solution to that false problem. And in doing so, you feel good about yourself. You have confidence. You're like, I know self-defense. Next time I walk on the street, somebody grab my wrist, I'm just gonna put it in a drill lock. But you know what's gonna happen? Next time someone come on the street and attack you, they're gonna hit you in the face. And before you know it, you're on the ground. They're gonna kick you a couple of times, take your wallet, take your teeth in, break your rib. And then by then it's too late to regret about the wrong choices you made in self-defense classes. So that is point 2, right? Is that relevance is important. What you're learning is actually how you're gonna be attacked on the street. If it's not, that's completely useless. Third point is practicality. How practical are the solutions you are learning? Okay, for example, especially for female self-defense, this is very prevalent. As you can see, I'm much taller than Naira and a bit stronger too. And I'm not the strongest person on the block. And in fact, I have quite skinny arms compared to people who go to the gym, people who are born with naturally bigger bones and bigger muscle mass. So especially for females defending against male, is much harder. And a lot of times, and in fact most of the time, these self-defense techniques, they don't actually get pressure tested. When you go to class, you're basically doing this against a person who is essentially a dummy. I'll give you a good example of this, okay? So, the one common self-defense technique taught to female for somebody choking your neck, so if you choke my neck, right? You should go in, grab their thumb, and then yank it open like this. And then they're like, you knee them in the balls. Okay, knee in the balls is good, but this It's nonsense, okay? I'm going to ask the arrow to repeat this. So if I'm choking her on the neck, I'm not even going to choke hard. And then, okay, go from the outside. Yes, and you pull on the thumb. Okay, go. Pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, hard. See what happened? What are you feeling?
Resistance.
Can you actually get it open?
Not easily, no.
And I'm not actually choking you.
Yeah.
So imagine if I'm actually, because I don't want to hurt her obviously, but if I'm actually choking in, I'll have you more force going inwards for her to be able to pull it out. And my finger will actually go into the throat, which is harder to even get a grip to pull it out. And this kind of rubbish that a lot of self-defense courses are teaching female. And my arm is not the thickest arm on the block, right? So someone who are bigger than me, like Afrikaners and in South Africa, you have even harder time to open that grip. But when you go to class, you don't know that because your training partner or the instructor is just gonna go like here, and then when you do the move, you're gonna just be like, go right, and then you feel very good about yourself. You're like, I can defend myself. It doesn't work. When you get attacked on the street, you realize how different it is. But by then, it's too late to regret. You're most likely going to get heavily injured, if not killed. Okay, so you have to pressure test these things with logic and reason and ask yourself, in a situation with somebody who are physically stronger than you, can these techniques work? And most of the time, the answer to most of these self-defense courses is that no, it does not work. Or what ends up happening is that the technique will fail you, and you're going to get hurt, or you're going to die. And this brings us to the next point, which is compatibility. Another big problem with these self-defense courses is that they teach you a solution, to memorize a solution to a specific problem, rather than teaching you a way to problem solve in general. Now, in my other video, I've talked about this, which is the idea of a master key, right? Either you have one key for every lock, and you have to open 50 different locks. You have 50 different keys. Or you have one master key that can open most of the locks that you ever encounter. Another way to look at this is just imagine this, okay? If you go to school, and then the math teacher teaches you that, okay, 12 times 5 is going to be 60. But instead of explaining to you how it comes about, right? For example, 12 times 5, you take 2 to 5, that makes it 10, and then 1 to 5, that makes it 5, and 5 plus 1 is 6, and you have 60. Instead of teaching that process, they tell you to memorize. Whenever you see 12 times 5, it's 60. And you can solve that problem precisely. But what if the problem is actually 13 times 5, or 12 times 6, or 13 times 7? Without knowing how to solve that initial problem, how to derive the initial answer, without understanding the process behind it, you can only solve one problem. And that's a big problem with self-defense. Because if you grab my wrist with this hand, I'm going to do a lock this way. If you grab my wrist like here, then the same technique, it doesn't work. I have to do something else. Okay? And if you grab my shoulder with that arm, then you do this. But if you grab with the other arm, again, this is not going to work. Then I have to basically do another technique. So everything is highly specific. But the thing is, you don't know how the assailant is going to attack you. He's going to attack you in 100 different possibilities. And if you're going to try to remember 100 different solutions, you're not going to execute any of them. At the end of the day, you're going to be burdening your mind with 100 different things that you learn but struggle to memorize. And then when the assailant comes, actually in real life, you're under stress and duress. And then when they do the attack, you only have a split second to actually react. You're going to blank out. And then you're going to fail to defend yourself. Okay? Another problem to this is that it's not good enough to just learn a technique. That's not the problem with a lot of people, right? They think that if I just show you, if I grab your wrist and then you're going to grab my hand and then turn around and put me in the joint lock, the moment you remember this, then you're good to go. When somebody do that, you're going to go to defend yourself. That's wrong. You need to actually do repetition and practice, okay? You have to practice the technique 1,000 times, 5,000 times, 10,000 times before you actually can do it efficiently under stress, okay? And without having to think about it first. They have to become part of your basic reactive instinct. To do that, you have to repeat it a lot of times. Now, if you have 100 solutions to 100 specific problems, unless you train every day and do nothing else but eat and sleep and train, you're not going to be able to have enough repetition of every single solution to a point where you can execute them in stress and under a sudden demand. You can't do that. It's simply not possible. Okay, which is why having 100 solutions for 100 problems is completely impractical. What should be done, which I've talked about in other videos, is that you have to have a core mechanic, core technique, a solution, a generalized solution for most of the problems that you can encounter. And in that way, you can spend all your training on those generalized solutions. And in doing so, in the same amount of time spent, where someone probably only repeated 100 techniques each 10 times, then you have already repeated the same thing 1,000 times, okay? And when they repeat the same technique 100 times, but with 100 technique, you have repeated the same training 10,000 times. And imagine the efficiency of you executing that one particular solution, but work for almost everything compared to them who have spent out their time and spend inefficient amount of time on every single technique and struggle to remember them and choose the right one in a stressful situation. So that's the other problem with self-defense training, that they give you too many solutions, specific solutions to specific problems. They don't teach you the general solution to all problems. Now you might wonder, what is the general solution to all problems? Okay, and the answer is simple. There are no self-defense. You might wonder, how does that link to the problem, right? How does that link to a general solution? Okay, so here's the thing. Self-defense is a made-up idea to better market a fake product to basically prey on desperate people. That's essentially what self-defense is, okay? In reality, when there's a confrontation between two people, right, whether it's a male and a female, or two male, two female, it doesn't matter. The only thing that there is whether you can fight or you can't fight. Self-defense, in essence, is the reason you fight, okay? If I'm attacking her and she's fighting back, that's self-defense. If I'm attacking her first, then that's assault or bullying if you're in school ground. Either way, what you actually are doing is just fighting, right? So there are nothing else. So in reality, either you can fight and beat me, or you can't fight and I beat you. So what is the solution to a generalized solution to all problems? It's quite simple. Learn how to fight. If you know how to fight, whether you're doing boxing, MMA, really good karate like Okinawan karate, or really authentic Chinese martial art, many of them out there, but between here and there you might find a genuine Chinese martial art master. Then what you're actually learning is how to punch, how to not get punched, how to kick, and how to not get taken down to the ground, how to not lose your balance. And that's essentially all you need, because no matter how an assailant is going to come at you on the street, it is going to be a confrontation, okay? You might wonder, but how is that going to solve all the other complicated problems that you're facing? Well, it's quite simple. You should grab my wrist, punch her in the face, okay? You grab my shoulder, punch her in the face. Grab the other one, I punch her in the face. Anything she does to me, I just not punch her. And that solves the problem, okay? I mean, obviously there are specific situations where you need more understanding. For example, what is holding a knife against me, holding a gun against me. Those are highly specific situations. And most of the time, I would say that if someone holding a knife on you, either you punch him in the face hard enough, and then he's gonna punch him some more, or if he's actually gonna get the chance to use that knife on you, you're gonna probably end up dead or heavily injured. But that's for another time. That's the topic we're talking about here. But most of the situations that you will encounter that will threaten your safety, learning how to punch somebody, how not to get punched, how to avoid getting hurt, is far more important and far better solution than learning how to counter a wrist grab this way, counter a shoulder grab that way. It's far better. You just master the basic punches, jab, cross, hook, and uppercuts, then you already have a generalized problem-solving ability. And most of the people that you meet, unless they're better trained than you, are not going to be able to hurt you when you are able to move faster and punch harder than them. That is simply how one should approach in learning how to defend themselves. Don't believe in the miracle formula or hack, right? Focus on the basic, essential, fundamental mechanics of fighting. And once you can do that, once, for example, she can do that, if we're going to spar and she doing fairly well against me in actual sparring without me going easy on her, then both for me and for her, we know that she is ready or have a very good chance to defend herself against untrained assailant on the street. Okay, so that's the only way that you will be able to really know that you will do okay if somebody attacks you. Again, this doesn't cover knives, it doesn't cover guns, but this is the basic. If you can't even do this, then even if you learn how to defend against a knife, you're still going to get stabbed, okay? Because stopping a punch is far easier than stopping a knife. If you can't stop a punch, there's a fat chance you're going to stop a knife, okay? So don't skip the first step, the baby step, which is learn how to fight. So in this whole video, forget everything else, remember this one thing. If you want to defend yourself, learn how to fight, and learn from someone who knows how to fight. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, you're wasting money, and you are risking your life. So I hope this video has made sense to you. If it does, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you can support me on Patreon channel, that would be greatly appreciated. And as always, give a shout out to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for supporting me, especially during this pandemic.
Special shout out to my new Patreon supporter, Isaac Silver. Thank you so much for supporting me and joining my Patreon family. As always, feel free to contact me with any questions regarding current content or suggestions for future content. The same goes for all my other Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support.
And on my Patreon channel, I have a lot of Patreon exclusive videos, especially on the internal martial art and 4 fundamental forces, which are most important understanding a mechanic to any internal martial art you do. If you know these principles and know how to apply them, then you're able to understand any internal martial art. If you don't have these mechanics, no matter what style of internal martial art you do, you're basically wasting your time. So if you're interested, feel free to check out my Patreon exclusive video and become a supporter. It's greatly appreciated. Lastly, I'll remind everyone that we are still in a pandemic. So wash your hands, sanitize your hands, wear your mask, social distance when you go outside. Try not to go to crowded places unless you absolutely have to. Stay safe and stay healthy. And I'll see you next time for the 6th episode where Naira will try out some of the popular internet self-defense techniques. Thanks for watching TriEssence Martial channel, and we'll see you next time.